Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Quantum Bridge. It's great that we've got another new guest today. So, Casper, can you please introduce the guest and let us know what's on the cards?
Oh, he's always got a line. He's always got a little line. Drops it in, makes me look bad. Right, okay, fair enough. I don't have a line. Anyway, what I do have is a magical 20-year-old cat with me. So, BB, say hello.
Yeah.
There he is.
You win. Yeah.
Anyway, as Gary said, and hello to you, by the way. Yeah, we're very pleased to have a brand new guest with us today. And without some massive intro at this stage, we can jump back into that. I'll just say, hi, Jess. Nice to see you.
Hi, nice to see you.
Good morning.
And Jess is somebody that we've found on our travels, not our digital travels this time. As with most of our guests, it seems recently, and certainly those recently via Gary and X, which obviously we're very appreciative of having, but actually in the real 3D, 5D, whatever it may be, in the sort of real world. So we found Jess during a little outing that Gary and I had up into town, so into London. And I think it's Leeson Grove, Alfie's Antiques, on a Friday. Jess can occasionally be found there doing her work and being very engaging and willing to accept people dropping by in the case of ourselves and having a quick chat. So hopefully we didn't take too much of her time up. But anyway, Jess, over to you. If you wouldn't mind, can you just give us a brief intro into sort of your work, your life, who you are, anything you want to touch on to get this moving?
Yes, hi. It was great meeting you at Alfie's, and I've been there recently since this year really. But I'm Jess. I run a local tarot practice in South London, Peckham, which is called Tia Shisha Tarot, and it's in honor of my dad's auntie, who is called Tia Shisha affectionately, and Tia means auntie in Portuguese, and they're from Brazil. So I've been kind of called, I think, to this cartomantic profession to read tarot. And really, to help people or to provide a space where people can come and consult with the cards, which is an oracle, which is something that's been done for centuries. And I'm really interested in the practice of folklore, of cards as storytelling, as community building, as an experience to connect people with something.
Was there a point that actually drew you more towards the cards than other things, or was it just happened that way?
It's happened that way. It did happen that way, but I've been interested in cards and in, as a teenager or as a child, even watching Charmed, like being interested in something other. But yeah, and we always were a family who loved to play cards. We'd always like playing cards in many different ways. My dad's side of the family is from Brazil. My mom's side is from Germany. So we've always had, we're playing with the cards. But then once I knew what tarot was as a teenager, I was scared of it, but I was really attracted to it. And somehow then recently in the pandemic, before the pandemic, I got my own deck and I started playing with it, started playing with friends. And then during the pandemic, I just quit my job. It wasn't feasible to do that anymore. And I had to ask myself, if I were to do something that I really wanted to do every day of my life, what would it be? And then tarot kind of came to me. I did a course for 9 months. And then during that time, after 6 months, I already had a shop. I was already reading cards to people. And 4 years in, a lot has changed and developed. And now,
What really strikes us about a lot of the guests that we have is a bit like ourselves, although we haven't fully done it, we've still got a foot in both camps. But most of the people we speak with have sort of struck out on their own in some way, or are trying to do something whereby their life and their work feels more authentic and feels more in tune to hopefully why they're here. and what their role to play here is. And the moment you find people like that, no matter the struggles that they're going through in that, because it can be, of course, I'm sure the same for yourself, there are ups and downs and highs and lows. But this thing of living more authentically, even if the money doesn't necessarily come with that immediately, it's just so important. How have you found that journey and that transition into doing something that means so much to you, and obviously where you can share that passion with others and truly affect their journey too, and maybe open their third eye, or certainly their eyes, to different variables and different ways of looking at things. Just generally, this thing, it's a very brave move. So how has it been for you overall to date, Jess?
Absolutely. I love that question. I love that, that topic, because I always say, yeah, the people that I've met along the way, they've encouraged me to be open and talk more about these things, like about the realm that we can't see, the things that are unnameable or untouchable, or even that we give names to as humans, but we don't know what it actually is. And so I always say, if someone comes to me and wants to consult with the cards, I mean, I have them here, like, for example, they are just cards. They are cards. What you do with them and how you treat them and how you live your life with integrity, which is something, and authenticity, as you say, is something that's really important to me. But if someone comes to me and wants to have a consultation, I honor that courage, because it takes courage to want to see. And so I always say it's a give and take. Partly people who I've met along the way have helped me a lot to be more open, to be more courageous, to be more. And once I stepped onto that path, like, the people just appeared, and like you as well, such as yourselves, and you can actually talk about things. But I think it's that initial barrier to break, to just open up and say. And if someone doesn't get it, we're like, well, oh well. It would, like, you might see something totally different than what I would see, which is the same in the cards, for example, like what you see here. This is the Rider-Waite Smith tarot deck, which is the kind of 1909, the Victorian, designed by Pamela Coleman Smith. But, like, for example, if we were to look at this card, you might see something totally different than what I might see, or in a different moment in time, I might pick up a different symbol than you might. So I always say it's a collaboration. Nothing is something that I do by myself. We're doing something together, and with the cards.
That is actually quite good, because it's brought up, it sort of answered the question that's been playing on my mind and I didn't know how to ask. But so somewhat answered it, because obviously you spoke about that you were drawn particularly to the tarot. I'm just wondering if people want to take it up, is this connection that maybe that you do need? I mean, like, if I had nothing, I just read a book and it said this card means this means that.
Yeah.
Do you, as a reader, need to have some sort of spiritual connection to come through to help read and determine what the cards are trying to tell you, as opposed to, just, well, this means that means that? And I want that sort of balance. How much is that the cards helping just tune you in, if that makes some sense?
Absolutely. And I love this question, because it's something that I speak about with my colleagues and community of tarot readers, because personally, I think anyone can read cards. And I kind of want to dispel that myth that, like, you have to be spiritually connected or have a spiritual practice to read cards. No, I think a lot of readers have cards as a jumping off point to their other psychic abilities, or to mediumistic abilities, or whatever else it is, or to their intuition. And maybe as humans, we all have a sixth sense, or we have an intuition. Maybe it's stronger, you can strengthen it or not. However, with tarot, so I can give another example, which is this one, which is a deck that's a medieval deck this one is drawn by an Argentinian artist and historian and cartomantic, like, genius, called Pablo Robledo. I'll show his deck here as well. But for instance, with a deck like this, which isn't as intuitive as the one I showed you before, because you would look at a card like that, think, okay, we don't know what's going on there. What does this mean, right? So tarot has a structure. It has a structure of 78 cards. It comes from the origin of playing cards. So when people used to use the suits, 4 suits, 1 to 10, and Knight, King, Queen, we know that kind of basic structure of playing cards. People then added other images to represent different things, to represent the court, to represent archetypes of life, such as if you have the moon, the sun, we have death, the one that everyone's scared of. It is scary, but it's a fact of life. So from people's and craftsmen and artists' illustrations and imaginations, and the nobility that used to commission them to draw things to add to these games, that's where it evolved from. So it's a game for everyone to play, as is life. So how much you go into it, what level you take it to is up to you. But I'd say anyone can read tarot. And at that point, I also want to like dispel that myth that Aleister Crowley invented, that tarot came from the ancient tablets of Egypt and was downloaded. Well, no. Have you seen someone like this in Egypt? Might be a bit hot to wear all these robes. So yes, I think in that sense, for me, anyone can read tarot. You can pick up a book that tells you the structure of what the cards are, what the meanings, or you just simply see what you say what you see. Yeah. Like it's usually the most obvious thing. And then to extrapolate meaning from that, okay, that's where we all come in with our individual histories and viewpoints. But that's, yeah.
How much do the people that you have sitting in front of you interact and bring their own meaning? Do people generally, in fact, we should have a reading sometime, but do people generally sit there and listen to your interpretations of what's coming up and what the cards are saying? Or do you get into a sort of two-way dialogue, or is that not done really?
So that really depends on the style of the reader. For me, I like to create a dialogue between myself and the person, and between us and the cards and whatever else there is, because it is, for me, it does end up being like a channeling, like, but that's where the container comes in. It's really important to set up the space. It's important to have a question beforehand, for example, to have a chat. So that's also where people are like scared, like, oh, what's tarot going to say? What are they going to tell me? I'm going to die tomorrow. No, it doesn't work like that. I'm not going to, like in movies, it's like portrayed as something like, tomorrow, this terrible thing is going to happen. No. We sit down, there's a question. If that person has a topic, or if they have a question, that specific question that they come with, great. If they don't, that's also fine, and we can go into something more general. And if questions come up from that, we go into more, we can ask questions and pull more cards during the session. But what's important is that, the person also has their input. I will be doing mostly of the interpreting. I always say I'm an interpreter of the cards. So I speak to the person. I deal with the cards, whatever comes up there, whatever we see. I'll speak. So in that sense, it's very different to therapy, because I think in a therapeutic space, which sometimes people can use this as a therapeutic or helpful tool, but this is not like therapy, like I will be speaking a lot. I will be speaking and saying what it is there, but then, and also asking questions. And the person can ask me questions, right? The client, the consultant can ask me questions at any time as well. So
can I get a sense of things like, I'm just thinking about other people listening, and I like all the more esoteric sides of things, so that's where I'll automatically gravitate to. But there are just some sort of fundamental questions here, things like, what's the balance between sort of men and women coming to you? What are the ages? Do you build up a rapport, and do people keep on coming back? And sort of the most asked questions or areas that people like to delve in, just to sort of frame this a little bit more. And I appreciate we don't have a huge amount of time, so hopefully you come back and join us and we delve into very specific areas more, because I really like the fact you brought the cards here as well and you're actually showing things and bringing this to life. But just on those more general areas, and even how long people come in and sit with you and what that environment's like. I know the one at Alfie's, and it felt very much the right feeling to have that sort of engagement. But yeah, can you touch on any of those sort of simplistic areas, please, Jess?
Absolutely. And I love that, because it's always good to come back to the basic and to the most obvious. Because for me, I'm like, oh, I'm in this world. But if to someone that has no idea or has never read tarot before. So, of course, there are mostly women that come, women like around, let's say 20 to 40, like let's say millennial type. However, I do read a lot for men. I read for, queer community, for people who, old, like for all ages. It is important to say that for my practice, the ethical and the moral standards are to not read for anyone who's under 18, because in a reading you have things that come up, and usually people come when they have a decision to make. So when they're feeling about, maybe we can say a bit lost or a bit indecisive or unsure about the next step, because why would you come to consult the cards? To get an answer, right? People are actually searching for an answer. So if it's about their spiritual path, or they want to develop that or connect with something, great. And then whatever comes out, there can be some very practical suggestions at the end, or actually from the cards, it can be very straightforward and practical. It gives you a map to go where you want to go, but then it's always up to you to do those things, because I believe, well, we all have free will. So with that, the cards are cards. They can show you what's around the corner. They can show you choices. They can give quite clear, concrete advice. They can give clarity, but then it's always up to us to do it. And that's the hardest part, usually, to actually take the advice or to actually put things. But things do tend to, a reading, for me anyways, what I've heard from my clients and the ones who keep coming back to, they say, things happened so quickly after the reading. So it does set things in motion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that thing about sort of getting clarity is interesting, and also the aspect of fear. A couple of things sort of coming out that one, your own fear and journey maybe, and not necessarily fear, but sort of trepidation around doing something new. Did you actually do a reading for yourself about whether or not taking this path, and then the extension of what might come from that was the way that perhaps you should be going, or what that might hold for you?
It's interesting. It's funny, actually, because we must have done so many readings on that course that I did with a long time ago with my first tarot teacher, a French woman called Aphibia. And she, I think pretty much things then, I don't remember exactly which cards came out, but certainly, like, immediately I had this opportunity to open up a small shop, and it was during the pandemic, and it was really scary. The first time I opened up, and I had a unit in Holdren's Arcade at Peckham, which is to this day where we still do one of the events, which is fortnightly on Wednesday, which is Tarot Cafe, which is kind of a community cafe where people come, they can bring their own cards or play, like learn to play with tarot cards. But yeah, so the first time I opened a shop in that location, it was supposed to be for 2 months, ended up being for 6 months, and it kind of just happened very quickly. So of course I was really scared. My motto is to be scared and then do it anyways. And if it's right to do it, sometimes you're afraid and you're like, that's the fear protecting you, or like saying you shouldn't be doing that. Sometimes it's the fear or the resistance that you have to push through, because well, I knew that was what I wanted and needed to do. But yeah, the first reading, someone that's so, that's to a stranger as well, like
it's real
4
now.
years ago.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that people find hard, I mean, a couple of things I'd like to touch on, and then I'll pass back to Gary, but this whole thing of taking money for something that is something you like and something sort of slightly fringe to some degree, and I'm not really talking about you and about tarot, by the way, I'm just talking more generally, that it can feel difficult and awkward. And the other aspect I would like to touch on, you might touch on that for a moment if you don't mind, Jess, but is also in our sort of world, and certainly with the quantum bridge, there's a lot of talk about different dimensions, and maybe more importantly here about timelines. And I just wonder how the cards play into that, where you're talking about taking decisions around your next step and free will, for example, how much the cards play to that whole notion of there's an element of fate and there's of predetermination and an element of free will, and about sort of where we go and what worlds we inhabit. There's maybe something that's broader that we talk about maybe in another show, actually, about the timelines aspect, because I'd love to hear about that. But sort of just jumping back and looking at that sort of initial area, on any of those aspects, I just love your thoughts, because you're in it's such a rich realm, because it's your own business, but it's tough to take that leap anyway. Then it's into an area that's not exactly mainstream. Then you're dealing with other people very directly in what you do. So there's just so much in that mix. Anything that you can bring to bear on that, I'd just be fascinated by.
Yes, and then there's the kind of I love this. I love this thought process, because I mean, we could talk for hours on that, like the
if we didn't get cut off after 40 minutes.
That's right. But and then there's the dimension for me, which is the ancestral, like I connect a lot to the ancestral storytelling. So to my aunties there. So I think for me, bringing that to the client that's the richness in itself, and then yes, asking for money, that has been a process too. And I think that's where people, I've worked with a lot of colleagues or experts or other practitioners who really address that, because I think it can be something that, for example, my ancestors didn't take money for what they did. They read playing cards, and it was very much fortune telling style. This is going to happen. And I have actually, next time I'll show their cards and their books. When I started I received from my grandma. She's like, oh yeah, take these. And it was very much, okay, this week, this is going to happen. And I have tried it out with friends. I haven't read to clients, to like people in the public, but and those things actually happened, like they were happening. But with tarot, or with the way I read to the public, is it's a snapshot of time now. So we go into that, and I think people who value what you do will pay for what you do. And I'm always I'll research the market price, I'll research the average price. I'm gonna put myself according to where I am in my experience, what I can offer, and in a reasonable, affordable price range. But it is important for me to be accessible to a lot of different people, which is why I have the one-to-one session is an hour, it's £80. At Alfie's, it's an exclusive market rate, so you can do half an hour as well, for example, which is, if you have a question, it's enough time to go into. Then I have the community cafe that I mentioned, which is like £15, and it's 2 hours. It's a very good, actually, workshop and meet up. So you get a lot to read cards as well. And if you're a beginner, if you're scared of it, you can have a taste. So for me, it's important to kind of cater to everyone, and that thing of putting value on what you do as well. It's also a process.
Yeah, and it's an energetic exchange. I mean, money is just a representation of a type of energy, and probably your own work just translated into this object that then or this this contactless payment these days. But whatever, there is that.
Even with friends, or even with when I traveled in Italy, there was a man and he was reading playing cards, and then he was like, just doing it for fun. But then he's like, oh, can you buy me just an espresso? It's €1. But just as an energetic exchange, or even with friends, like give me a coin or something just to represent that. It's
or give me some of your time doing something. I don't know, if you were at a friend who was a gardener, they might do some gardening. For example.
Yeah.
You know, I get my hair cut and my nails
Well,
done.
there you are. Yeah, that's a
Yes.
much better example. Yeah.
But anything, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful. I like that, you know,
Mm.
that when you have a craft or you have something you can, or anyone has an ability, you can
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
Gary, if you,
we said this might go quick, so
Mm.
it's that sort of wind down time, I'm afraid. So obviously we've heard about where you're based and some of the stuff you're doing. We'll also put all that information in the description below.
absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have like websites and things as well?
Yes, I'll share my website and mainly socials. Instagram, I guess nowadays is where you can
Yeah.
see a lot of the work that I'm doing. And yes, I've on Tuesday actually I've got a new project that I'm starting, which it'll be the 3rd edition of Dance the Tarot. So it's about embodiment, physical, yeah, moving the cards, which we're doing with this. It's a modern deck. So it's called Clarity, and it's a bit less
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
There aren't as many figures, or the figures, if you see them,
Yeah.
they're nondescript. So they lend themselves quite well to movement, which is something that I'm interested in as well, because it's like you're actively participating or embodying the tarot, because the body is very wise. And when we're in all these realms and these other things, coming back to the body is quite important, I think. So yes, I'll share the details of that. It's this Tuesday in Elephant and Castle at Siobhan Davies Dance Studio.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole aspect of grounding, particularly sort of a lot of what we do here on the Quantum Bridge, we are going off on these amazing sort of voyages of spirituality and maybe intellect in sometimes as well. But it is, you're right, this embodiment of stuff. And that comes back to a lot of the stuff we look at in the Tai Chi and Kung Fu areas as well, because it's just, you know, this thing of bringing it back to the wisdom of the innate wisdom of the body. Is interesting stuff. Look, Jess, I think there's, and I really appreciate you bringing, by the way, the cards and the images, because I find the images themselves fascinating, just talking about those and the different decks that are available and where they come from and the people behind those. That in itself would be a lovely show to do.
Yeah, I'd
so
quite like
maybe
to sort of deep dive on that type of thing as well, and which ones resonate with you and why and all that sort of thing. But we'll have to leave it for another day. But
absolutely, I'd love
it's
to.
been a great introduction. So thank you for that.
Yes, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and for giving me the space to share about the work that I'm doing and for being interested as well.
Oh no, well of course. And the other thing is, we know that the more we do of these, and if we can get a couple more of these done each time, hopefully you will feel more relaxed, more used to this environment. Just like with your reading and with your own business and everything else, over time it becomes something that feels more natural. So hopefully we can all feel calmer, and there from that there's much more that comes out of it all as well. But as an introduction, and for being here and being brave enough to come on, thank you. It'd be nice to see you again.
Absolutely.
I still struggle after 100 or whatever videos it is. So.
But it's great. So you're doing it with fear anyway, doing it with,
that's it. Yeah.
that's where we are now in the social media realm as well. It's great.
So,
thank you so much. It's been a
Brilliant.
pleasure.
You take care and have a lovely day.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Lovely to see you. Thank you, Jess.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.